Hello, and welcome back to Guitar Solo Dojo. Jason Moore here, and we're going to do something today that I normally don't do. I'm going to help you try to learn a solo that I've just learned myself. And I have played through this solo a few times over the years, but not to the point of being able to try to explain it to somebody else, meaning it was kind of a hack job. So here I am trying to work this thing out. So I got this gig, and one of the songs that we're supposed to do is Hot for Teacher. And so I have to learn it the right way now, finally. And so here we are. And I knew it was going to be a challenge, and the challenge lies in the tempo. Super fast shuffle, right? Like around 250 to 254, kind of fluctuates just a little bit, but it's right in that ballpark, which is pretty fast, faster than pretty much any other shuffle that Van Halen had done. So I'm the One, I think, is also a fast shuffle, but that's around 230 to 235, right around there. So even quicker, and you feel every part of that speed. Because if you're off, even by the slightest little eighth note, then everything gets shifted, and it's really, really hard to find your way back. Some of the other problems that I have practicing this is if I'm not using live drums where I can feel the kick drum and I can feel all that stuff, which I'm not using live drums, I'm just using earbuds, and or a metronome, it's really, really difficult to stay in the pocket on this stuff. And so with that, it's actually easier to use a metronome because you just hear this very pronounced beat, right? But I also like to use the accent on the one, so I like to tick, 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 like to hear that beat number one accentuated so I know exactly where I'm at. But the problem here is that it doesn't really work that way in the solo, because there's that whole middle section where it drops into halftime, that little ascending run on the way to the second half of the solo. And that doesn't really fit with a metronome if you want to keep the accent on one. So there's it's a little issue you have to figure out. Anyway, and like I said, it goes by so fast, you could easily accidentally add an a quarter note if you don't use the accent on the metronome, and you wouldn't even really know it. But when you heard it back, you go like, oh, yeah, I guess I should use that accent. Anyway, so here we go. Let's talk about the timing. It's always about the timing, when the phrases start, where your head's at when the phrases start, and that's the most important part here, okay? Just starting the phrase in the right spot. I'm pretty sure Eddie never played his solos the same way live. Definitely hit parts of them the same way, but so tiny little nuance differences, are okay. And I'm sure I didn't play it exactly note for note when I just played the little demonstration there, but close. But I'm more concerned about when the phrases start rather than hitting each note exactly twice versus three times. And so let's just start in with the very beginning. And that first solo lick that you hear is the same thing that you hear in the intro lick, right? And where it just does this thing. Right, so we got that little tapping run. The hard part about that tapping run is, of course, the timing. So first of all, it just starts with one little triplet, or I'm not sure what it hits with the pinky there, but anyway, that's just on the fourth beat, leading right into the solo. And then we want to use this tapping hand to create basically what are going to be half note triplets. So you've got this really fast tempo, and I'm going to go obviously slower than the tempo. Da, 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 da. So that's our basic idea of how we want to tap this right hand. And we only get 5 of the 6 notes in these two combined half note triplets, because then on the 6th one, it jumps right into that bend. And I think that happens right on beat number 4, or on the end of beat number 4. So it's... Okay, so it holds that bend for a measure, and then we go into the tremolo picking run. The tremolo picking run is just really fast. Even if you just want to keep up with triplets, you're still looking at playing triplets at 254, maybe even just a little bit faster, which is really close. It's like 127 at sextuplets, which is pretty fast. And if you don't have the pick speed for it, that's okay. Just play it a little bit slower. You could actually swing it instead of trying to do triplets. But if you can go for the triplets, great. It's And for me, when I'm doing those tremolo picking lines, especially at a really, really fast tempo, I'm not feeling it the way Eddie did because Eddie wrote it and he played it, right, originally. So I'm not going to feel it the same way. So I have to find a target. And my target is going to be when I'm switching those notes. And I don't have to follow that exactly, but at least I start there. And when you start there, you can always change a little bit. But having a goal in the beginning, like when I'm going to switch those notes, is really, really key. So how I approach it is, and it's very close to when he's actually switching on the record, but I'm going to do first 2 beats on the 4th fret. It's all on the G string, so I'm going to do the first 2 beats on the 4th fret. So 1, 2, then the next 2 beats on the 6th fret. 1, 2, okay? And of course, we're tremolo picking, right? And then we switch to the next one, which is, again, the 6th fret, only 1 beat though, so it's 1, 2, 3, 4. So our first 2 measures of this tremolo picking run are going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then we cap it off with just 1 beat here on the 13th fret, and just one hit that 14th fret 1 time, and that just carries the rest of the measure. So we got okay. Then the next phrase comes in after that measure is complete of here, 2, 3, 4, and then we get this. Okay, that comes right on the end of 2. Our next goal here, our next target, is this note. This lands on right on 1. Okay, so then we get this really cool run. Okay, the first one of those is a pickup note, and it's right on beat number 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And he starts with the slight bend, and gets the bends a little bit deeper and deeper. And the last bend and these last 2 notes are on 3 and 4 and. So it's, or 4 I guess, since we're doing a shuffle. So 1, 2, 3, 4 Sorry. 1, 2, 3, 4 Okay, that's how that's going to time out. And that might help you get to where you need to go on the next part. So then we get to this sort of really, really cool but hard to grasp section of the solo, because it's mostly in time, but it's not perfect. And I don't know what he was meaning, but it's, you know, it's pretty much right there, but it's really hard to articulate exactly the way he did it. So once again, I pick a target and I shoot for that target. And I'm going to have to really kind of fill in the gaps later. But at this point, when you're trying to copy somebody else, it's fairly easy to copy somebody who has a very, very structured thing. Doesn't mean you could play full speed, but it's fairly easy to copy the sound if it's just, you know, all 16th notes and then 8th notes and then triplets or whatever. This one's kind of funky. And it's super, super fast, and it's Eddie Van Halen. It's more like trying to copy somebody's scribbles. So I try to scrape out and get rid of some of the part of the scribbles that are unnecessary, and then I gut it out, and then I just take the basics, and then I see what happens, right? And sometimes it sounds just like what he did, sometimes it doesn't. But we get this part, we got after this. We go right to this part. And that's going to be the first 2 beats of this measure. And that's going to be the next 2 beats. So it's like a triplet and then two 8th notes shuffled, of course. So, and then we get that same lick played again, one more time, and then it starts it and ends with this little lick, this bend here on the 5th fret of the B string. This cool little F sharp minor blues pentatonic thing right at the bottom of there, which is pretty straightforward, mostly 8th notes and stuff. And so you get to this bend here. You got a full measure of this bend, okay? And then we get to the really, really weird part that will mess up a lot of people, the timing of it anyway. And once again, I'll restate it. It's because it's really fast. And so the way I think of this, it doesn't line out exactly, and I don't know how they thought of it, but the way I figured it out to help me stay in time was think of it as measures of 3. this basically 6 measures of 3. Okay, so we get this accent. Da, 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 da. So we get 1, 2, 3, da, 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 da. So it's on the downbeat and then the upbeat of 2, basically. Okay, and so that's how I follow it, and it does it 5 times. And then we get to this, and I think of that as starting on beat number 2, because I think it actually does start on beat number 2. I start counting it that way, but it really kind of acts as another measure of 3, essentially, when you break it up that way. Now, as far as the drummer is concerned, I don't care. I don't know what they're doing on the drums, and like I said, I don't care. That's his problem. If he has to shift where he's putting the snare, not my issue to deal with, but we got this, so. Okay, and then we get to one of my favorite parts. That part, I don't even know what to tell you on. There's a lot to go on there, but it's not that tricky in terms of hearing it. Because this is it's one of the reasons my favorite parts of the solo, or one of my favorite parts of the solo, is that it's really, really catchy. It catches your ear, and you can hum that part out. Some of the other sections are a lot more difficult to grasp and just kind of replicate, but this part, I find that fairly easy to copy, and I could go into the details of the rhythm of it, but this would probably take a couple hours on the video, so I won't. I think it's better on that section if you just listen to it and try to copy the sound, with a metronome, of course. And there are some parts where you can kind of hear him playing on the upbeat, which at that speed is really tricky to do, coupled with the fact that it's a shuffle, makes it even trickier. So anyway, be aware of that. So then we got that little lick next. So, and this comes in, I believe, on the end of 2. And this right here, this part right here, those last 2 notes, or not quite the last 2 notes, but these 2 notes start on beat number 2. 1, 2. Okay, those are critical. If you don't hit those in the right spot, it throws everything else off, because this kind of sneaks up on you. And if you look at it on paper, it looks like it's just kind of really slow and relaxed, but it's still 250 something beats per minute. And so you can't even be an 1/8 note behind to make that last. So when I approach this lick, these 2 notes right there were the ones I really focused my attention on, because I needed it to wrap up right there. And then you can almost reverse engineer it. Of course, you want everything to land in the right spot before that, but and after that, we're home free. Easy, right? Anyway, no, it wasn't easy for me. Hopefully it's easy for you. And hopefully these little rhythmic tips help. Anyway, have fun. Please leave questions or comments in the comment section, where you would probably leave it, I would think. And feel free to ask me more about it. And if there's something that I missed, or some boneheaded thing that I didn't address, please point that out too, and I will hopefully try to fix that. Anyway, have fun. Rock on.